One arm, one weapon, one blind assassin who won't stop until heads roll. Master of the Flying Guillotine wasn't just another kung fu movie. It was a fever dream wrapped in a tournament, dripping with blood and powered by a weapon that defied physics. But behind the severed heads and psychedelic fights, nothing went according to plan. The director fought with one arm tied behind his back, literally. The villain couldn't see his own stunts. And one scene, it broke every rule of martial arts cinema just to prove a point. These are 20 weird facts about Master of the Flying Guillotine. And the bonus, let's just say the soundtrack came from somewhere no one expected. Spin up that blade. This ride gets deadly fast. Number 1. Jimmy Wang Yu didn't just direct Master of the Flying Guillotine, he did it while missing an arm, not on screen, in real life. Years before filming, Wang Yu was in a catastrophic motorcycle accident that left his right arm permanently damaged. Doctors told him he'd never fight again, never perform martial arts, never be an action star. He refused to accept it. Instead of retiring, he created an entire fighting style designed around his disability. He trained his left arm to do everything, rewrote choreography to hide his limitations, and turned his weakness into his signature. When he made One-Armed Boxer, it wasn't just a character choice. It was autobiography disguised as revenge fantasy. And when he came back for the sequel, Master of the Flying Guillotine, he proved something bigger, that a one-armed director could outfight, outdirect, and outcreate anyone in Hong Kong cinema. Every punch you see on screen, every block, every impossible move, that's a man who refused to be broken. Wang Yu didn't overcome his injury, he weaponized it. And in doing so, he turned a martial arts B-movie into a testament to pure, stubborn will. Number 2. The Flying Guillotine itself, that spinning blade of death that became the film's icon, wasn't based on ancient Chinese weaponry. It was completely made up. No historical record exists of anything like it. No museum holds one. No martial arts manual describes it. Jimmy Wang Yu invented it from scratch because he needed a villain weapon that looked unstoppable, felt terrifying, and could decapitate someone from across the room. The prop department built the first prototype out of wicker, cloth, and wire. It didn't spin, it barely flew, and when they tested it on set, it fell apart mid-air. So they built another, and another. By the time cameras rolled, they'd gone through 7 different versions, each one more elaborate than the last. The final design weighed over 15 pounds, had internal springs, and required 2 people to operate it off camera. On screen, it looked like dark magic, a cloth cage that dropped over heads, blades that spun like a chainsaw, and a chain that yanked victims back to their doom. Audiences had never seen anything like it, and filmmakers everywhere took notice. The weapon became so iconic that it appeared in dozens of films afterward, inspired video game bosses, and turned into a cult symbol. All because one director needed a weapon that didn't exist, so he just built one anyway. Number 3. The film's main villain, the blind assassin Feng Sheng Wu Chi, was played by a man who legitimately couldn't see during filming. Actor Kam Kong wasn't fully blind in real life, but he had severe vision impairment that made performing stunts incredibly dangerous. To prepare for the role, he spent weeks training blindfolded, learning to fight by sound and instinct. On set, the crew had to guide him between takes, mark his positions with tape he could feel with his feet, and use audio cues to signal when attacks were coming. During fight scenes, stunt coordinators would clap or whistle to help him time his movements. It was slow, painstaking, and nerve-wracking for everyone involved. But Kam Kong refused a stunt double. He insisted on doing every scene himself because he believed the character's blindness had to feel real, not performed, and it shows. Watch the way he moves on screen, head tilted, listening, sensing. It's not acting, it's adaptation. The film's most chilling moments come from watching a blind man hunt with absolute precision, never missing, never hesitating. What could have been a gimmick became the film's most unsettling performance. Because the danger wasn't fake, the actor was fighting in the dark, trusting instinct and muscle memory, and somehow, he never missed a beat. Number 4. The tournament sequence, where fighters from around the world gather to compete, wasn't scripted as international at all. Originally, it was supposed to be an all-Chinese martial arts competition. But during pre-production, Jimmy Wang Yu had a revelation. He wanted to prove that Kung Fu could beat any fighting style on the planet. So he rewrote the entire sequence and started casting fighters from different countries, each representing a distinct martial art. He brought in a Thai boxer from Muay Thai, a Japanese karate expert, a yoga master from India who could stretch into impossible positions, and even a street fighter from Korea. None of them were professional actors. They were real martial artists. Some barely spoke Cantonese, and most had never been on a film set before. Wang Yu didn't care. He wanted authenticity over performance. The result was one of the strangest, most chaotic tournament scenes ever filmed. Fighters attacked with styles that clashed and collided in ways no choreographer had planned. The yoga master bent backward to dodge strikes. The Muay Thai fighter used elbows and knees like weapons, and the whole thing felt less like a movie and more like a real underground fight club. It was messy, unpredictable, and completely electrifying, and it set a template that would echo through martial arts cinema for decades, proving that sometimes the best fights come from throwing the rulebook out entirely. Number 5. The film's iconic soundtrack, with its driving guitar riff and funky bass line, didn't come from a composer. It was stolen, not borrowed, not licensed. Straight up lifted from other sources and dropped into the film without permission. Jimmy Wang Yu and his team scoured record stores for music that matched the energy they wanted, found tracks from German krautrock bands, American funk records, and psychedelic rock compilations, then edited them into the fight scenes. No contracts, no credits, no royalties. Just pure musical piracy. The main theme that plays during the opening and closing credits was pulled from a Swiss prog rock band's album. Another track came from a French experimental group, and nobody noticed for years because these were obscure international records that hadn't penetrated Asian markets. But when the film became a cult hit in the West, music fans started recognizing the tracks. Message boards lit up, forums debated the sources, and slowly the truth emerged. Master of the Flying Guillotine had one of the most eclectic, illegally assembled soundtracks in cinema history. Some rights holders eventually found out and sent cease and desist letters, but by then, the film had been bootlegged and copied so many times across so many countries that enforcing anything was impossible. The music stayed, and ironically, those lifted tracks became so synonymous with the film that some bands later embraced the association, claiming the movie had made their music cool again. Number 6. During production, the film ran out of money halfway through shooting. Not uncommon for Hong Kong B-movies, but this time, it nearly killed the project entirely. The investors pulled out after seeing early footage, calling it too weird, too violent, too uncommercial. Jimmy Wang Yu was left with half a movie, no budget, and a crew that hadn't been paid in weeks. Most directors would have walked away. Wang Yu mortgaged his house. He sold his car, borrowed money from friends, and convinced the remaining crew to work on deferred payment, promising them a cut of the profits if the film ever made money. Some stayed out of loyalty, others stayed because they believed in the vision. Filming slowed to a crawl. They could only afford to shoot 2 or 3 days a week. Fight scenes that should have taken hours were rushed through in single takes. Some sequences were filmed in Wang Yu's own backyard because they couldn't afford location fees. The coffin shop scene was shot in a real funeral home after hours because the owner owed Wang Yu a favor. Props were recycled from other films. Costumes were borrowed from actors' personal wardrobes. And somehow, through sheer scrappy determination, they finished it. The final cut looks polished, intense, complete. You'd never know it was stitched together with borrowed money and desperation. But Wang Yu knew, and he never forgot that Master of the Flying Guillotine almost died before it could live. Number 7. The film's most brutal death scene, where a fighter's head is ripped clean off by the guillotine, wasn't done with CGI or camera tricks. It was pure practical effects, and it almost went catastrophically wrong. The effects team built a dummy head, filled with fake blood and raw meat to simulate flesh. They rigged it with wires, attached it to a spring-loaded mechanism, and planned to yank it off in one clean pull during the guillotine attack. Simple, effective, classic B-movie gore. Except when they tested it, the head didn't detach smoothly. It exploded. Blood sprayed everywhere, drenching the actors, the crew, the camera lens. The spring was too strong, the blood packets overpressurized, and the meat inside had started rotting under the hot studio lights, making the whole thing smell like death. The crew gagged. One camera operator walked off set and didn't come back for an hour, but Jimmy Wang Yu watched the footage and loved it. He said it looked real, visceral, disgusting in exactly the right way. So they cleaned up, built another dummy head with slightly less pressure, and shot it again. This time, it worked, kind of. The head still sprayed more blood than expected, but it looked brutal and unforgettable. And that's what you see in the final film. Not a polished Hollywood effect, but a messy, grotesque, shocking moment that made audiences scream in theaters. Because sometimes the best horror comes from things going slightly wrong. Number 8. The Coffin fight, one of the film's most surreal and unforgettable sequences, was inspired by a nightmare Jimmy Wang Yu had as a child. He'd described it in interviews as a recurring dream, where he was being chased through a graveyard by a man in white who could jump impossibly high and carried weapons inside coffins. The dream terrified him for years, and he never knew why it stuck with him. But when he was writing Master of the Flying Guillotine, he realized he could turn that childhood fear into cinema. So he created a villain who literally emerged from coffins, leapt across rooftops, and used the coffins themselves as shields and weapons. The scene was a nightmare made real, and it gave the film one of its most visually distinctive moments. To shoot it, they built collapsible coffins that actors could hide inside, rigged them with breakaway panels for dramatic reveals, and choreographed a chase sequence that defied physics. The actor playing the coffin fighter had to crouch inside the prop for hours between takes, waiting for his cue. He later said it was claustrophobic, painful, and made him rethink his career choices. But on screen, it's mesmerizing. A man weaponizing death itself, flipping through the air, using burial boxes as armor. It's absurd, surreal, and somehow completely sincere. Jimmy Wang Yu took his childhood terror and turned it into art. And decades later, filmmakers are still trying to figure out how he pulled it off. Number 9. One of the international fighters in the tournament was a yoga master who could dislocate his joints and bend backward until his head touched the ground. He wasn't a trained fighter. He was a street performer Jimmy Wang Yu found at a night market in Taiwan. The man had been bending himself into impossible shapes for small crowds, collecting tips in a hat. Wang Yu watched him for 20 minutes, walked up afterward, and offered him a role in the film on the spot. No audition, no screen test. Just show up and do what you do. The performer, whose real name was never credited in the film, had never acted before. He didn't know martial arts. He just knew how to twist his body in ways that looked superhuman. On set, the stunt coordinators tried to choreograph traditional fight moves for him, but it wasn't working, so they scrapped it and told him to just improvise, dodge attacks using his flexibility, and make it look impossible. And he did. He bent backward under punches, twisted sideways to avoid kicks, contorted into shapes that made the other actors stop mid-scene and stare. Some of his moves were so extreme, the crew thought he was injured, but he'd just pop back up, grinning, ready for the next take. The character became one of the most memorable fighters in the tournament, not because he was the strongest, but because he moved like no human should be able to move. Number 10. The final showdown between the one-armed hero and the blind assassin wasn't choreographed in advance. Jimmy Wang Yu and Kam Kong showed up to set with a rough idea of how the fight should feel, but no step-by-step plan. They decided to improvise the entire sequence, reacting to each other in real time, letting instinct guide the combat. It was a huge risk. Most martial arts films plan every punch, every block, every fall down to the second. But Wang Yu believed that over-choreographed fights looked stiff, rehearsed, fake. He wanted something raw, unpredictable, dangerous. So they started filming with just a loose framework. The blind man hunts, the one-armed fighter survives. Everything else they made up as they went. Kam Kong would attack and Wang Yu would react. Wang Yu would counter and Kam Kong would adjust. The camera operators had no idea what was coming next, so they just followed the action. Handheld, chaotic, intimate. Some takes were unusable because the actors moved out of frame. Others were perfect on the first try. The final cut of the fight is a patchwork of improvised moments, real exhaustion, and genuine surprise. You can see it in their faces, the sweat, the heavy breathing, the brief pauses where they're actually thinking about what to do next. It's not polished, it's not perfect, but it's alive in a way that most fight scenes never achieve. Because for those few minutes, it wasn't acting. It was two men, one blind, one missing an arm, battling it out with everything they had. Number 11. The iconic training montage where the one-armed boxer practices in the mountains wasn't filmed in the mountains at all. It was shot in a quarry 20 minutes outside Taipei. The production couldn't afford to travel to remote locations, so they found the most desolate, rocky area they could reach by van and dressed it up to look like a mystical training ground. They brought fake boulders made of papier-mâché, scattered them around real rocks, and shot at sunrise to get dramatic lighting. But nature had other plans. On the second day of filming, a rainstorm hit without warning. The crew scrambled to protect the cameras, but the fake boulders started dissolving in the rain, turning into gray mush. Jimmy Wang Yu stood there watching his props melt and made a split-second decision: keep filming. He told the cameraman to shoot him training in the rain, soaking wet, surrounded by dissolving fake rocks and real mud. The result looked even better than what they'd planned. Raw, brutal, a man training through impossible conditions. The scene became one of the film's most memorable moments, not despite the disaster, but because of it. And Jimmy Wang Yu learned something that day that he'd carry through his entire career. Sometimes the best filmmaking happens when everything goes wrong and you're crazy enough to keep the cameras rolling anyway. Number 12. The dubbed English version of the film, which introduced it to Western audiences, was recorded in a single afternoon by 4 voice actors who voiced every single character. No rehearsal, no character prep. Just 4 people in a Hong Kong recording studio, reading lines off a script they'd never seen before. One actor voiced the hero, the villain, and 3 different tournament fighters. Another did all the female characters, plus several monks. The director of the dubbing session told them to just make it sound exciting, and not worry about matching lip movements perfectly, because the film was so fast-paced nobody would notice. They were right. The English dub is wildly inconsistent, hilariously over the top, and somehow perfect for the film's chaotic energy. Voices change mid-scene, accents shift randomly, and dramatic moments are delivered with soap opera intensity. But it worked. Western audiences ate it up. The dubbed version became the definitive way most people experienced the film outside Asia, and those exaggerated vocal performances became part of the movie's cult charm. Years later, when restoration companies tried to create new, more accurate dubs, fans revolted. They wanted the messy original, the one recorded in an afternoon by 4 exhausted actors who had no idea they were creating a legend. Number 13. During the tournament sequence, one fighter was supposed to be knocked out by a spinning kick and stay down, but the stuntman, a former street fighter named Chen Li, refused to sell the hit. He kept getting back up between takes, insisting his character wouldn't go down that easily. Jimmy Wang Yu tried to explain it was choreography, not a real fight, but Chen didn't care. His pride was on the line, so Wang Yu made him a deal. If Chen could actually take a full-force spinning kick from the lead stunt coordinator and stay standing, his character could keep fighting. If he went down, the scene stayed as written. Chen agreed immediately. The cameras rolled. The kick came fast and brutal, catching Chen square in the ribs. He stumbled, gasped, and for a moment, everyone thought he'd collapse. But he didn't. He straightened up, spit blood into a bucket off camera, and grinned. Wang Yu kept his word. They rewrote the scene on the spot, giving Chen's character an extended fight sequence that wasn't in the original script. It added 3 minutes to the tournament and became one of the most exciting fights in the film. And Chen Li, the stubborn stuntman who refused to stay down, earned a reputation that got him stunt work for the next decade. Number 14. The spinning blade sound effect that accompanies the Flying Guillotine wasn't created by a sound designer. It was recorded by accident during a completely different film. The sound engineer was working on a war movie and had recorded tank treads grinding against metal when someone dropped a piece of sheet metal near the microphone. The resulting sound, a high-pitched metallic whirring mixed with grinding gears, was too weird for the war film, so it got archived and forgotten. Months later, when Master of the Flying Guillotine was in post-production, the same engineer was searching for something that sounded deadly and mechanical. He stumbled across the old recording, slowed it down, added reverb, and played it for Jimmy Wang Yu. Wang Yu heard 2 seconds and said, "That's it." That accidental recording became the signature sound of the weapon, playing every time the guillotine spun into action. And it worked so well that other films started copying it, trying to recreate that specific metallic shriek. But they never quite matched the original because they didn't have the secret ingredient: a dropped piece of metal, a war movie recording session, and a sound engineer who knew how to turn a mistake into movie magic. Number 15. The film's final scene, where the hero walks off into the sunset, wasn't Jimmy Wang Yu's choice. He wanted a darker ending where the one-armed boxer dies from his injuries, victorious but broken. He'd even filmed the death scene, a quiet moment where the hero collapses after the fight and closes his eyes for the last time. It was poetic, tragic, and completely uncommercial. The studio saw the rough cut and panicked. They told Wang Yu that audiences needed hope, needed the hero to survive, needed something to cheer for. Wang Yu fought back. He argued the ending had weight, meaning truth, but the studio held the money and the final cut. So they made a deal. Wang Yu could keep his artistic integrity on everything else, but the hero had to live. Furious but cornered, Wang Yu shot a new ending in one day. The hero limping away, wounded but alive, disappearing into the distance. He hated it. He thought it betrayed the character's journey. But decades later, he admitted the studio might have been right, because that hopeful ending, the one he was forced to shoot, became iconic. It promised that the one-armed boxer would return, would keep fighting, would never truly be defeated, and audiences loved him for it. Number 16. The blood used in the film wasn't the typical movie blood of the era. Most Hong Kong productions used a bright red corn syrup mixture that looked fake under lights. Jimmy Wang Yu wanted something darker, more realistic, more disturbing, so the effects team experimented with different recipes, mixing food coloring, chocolate syrup, and even coffee grounds to get the right consistency and color. The result was a thick, dark blood that looked almost black in certain lighting, more like real blood from real wounds. It also stained everything permanently. Costumes, props, and even the studio floor ended up covered in dark brown splatters that wouldn't wash out. The studio charged Wang Yu extra for cleaning costs. Several actors complained that the fake blood ruined their personal clothing, but Wang Yu didn't care because on camera, it looked horrifyingly real. When heads rolled and blood sprayed, audiences flinched. Critics called it excessive, censors flagged it in multiple countries, but that darker, thicker blood became part of the film's visual identity, separating it from every other kung fu movie of the era, and proving that sometimes the smallest details make the biggest impact. Number 17. One of the fighters in the tournament wore extendable arms, a ridiculous weapon that stretched out to hit opponents from impossible distances. It looked absurd on paper, but somehow worked on screen. The arms were built from bamboo poles, painted cloth, and a pulley system operated by 2 crew members hiding off camera. When the actor threw a punch, they'd yank the poles forward, making his arms shoot out across the frame. It was low-tech, visible if you looked close enough, but in the chaos of the fight, it read as something genuinely strange and threatening. The mechanism broke constantly. The poles would snap, the cloth would tear, and the pulleys would jam, forcing the crew to rebuild the entire contraption between takes. By the end of shooting, they'd gone through 6 different versions of the extendable arms. The actor operating them hated every minute, saying it made him look silly and hurt his actual arms from holding the poles at weird angles. But audiences loved it. The extendable arm fighter became a fan favorite, showing up in parody films and video games decades later. Because Master of the Flying Guillotine understood something crucial about martial arts cinema. The weirder the weapon, the more memorable the fighter. And sometimes silly becomes legendary. Number 18. The film never received a proper theatrical release in the United States. Instead, it found its audience through late-night television, bootleg VHS tapes, and kung fu movie marathons on local stations. Throughout the late 70s and early 80s, American audiences discovered it by accident, flipping channels at midnight and stumbling into decapitations and flying weapons. Those broadcasts were often edited, poorly dubbed, and missing entire scenes due to violence concerns. But none of that mattered. The film's raw energy cut through the bad transfers and choppy edits. Viewers recorded it on blank tapes, made copies for friends, and passed it around like contraband. Film students at universities started screening it in dorm rooms. Midnight movie theaters added it to double features with other kung fu cult classics. And slowly, without marketing, without distribution, without any official support, Master of the Flying Guillotine became an underground phenomenon. Quentin Tarantino discovered it this way. So did RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. Countless directors, writers, and musicians found it through murky recordings and fell in love. By the time anyone tried to give it an official release, it was too late. The film belonged to the underground, where it thrived. Number 19. Jimmy Wang Yu never made the third one-armed boxer film he'd planned. After Master of the Flying Guillotine became a cult hit, he had notebooks full of ideas for a trilogy-capping finale. A story where the one-armed hero would face an army of guillotine-wielding assassins. A final battle that would push his skills to the absolute limit. He pitched it to studios throughout the late 70s and early 80s, but everyone passed. They said the martial arts boom was ending. Audiences wanted modern action, and nobody cared about one-armed heroes anymore. Wang Yu was devastated. He'd poured everything into these two films, turned his disability into art, and created something genuinely unique, but the industry had moved on. He made other movies, some successful, most forgotten. But he never stopped thinking about that third film. In interviews decades later, he'd describe scenes from the Unmade sequel with perfect clarity, as if it still existed somewhere in his mind, fully formed and just waiting to be filmed. He never got the chance. And somewhere in Hong Kong cinema history, there's a ghost of a film, a trilogy that almost was, a final chapter that exists only in the imagination of the man who refused to let one arm define him. Number 20. The film's influence reached far beyond martial arts cinema. When Quentin Tarantino made Kill Bill, he lifted entire sequences, visual styles, and the spirit of Master of the Flying Guillotine. The crazy 88 fight, the international assassins, the over-the-top weapons, all of it traced back to Jimmy Wang Yu's fever dream. RZA sampled the soundtrack for Wu-Tang Clan tracks, turning those stolen prog rock riffs into hip-hop gold. Video games from Mortal Kombat to Street Fighter borrowed the guillotine concept for special moves and fatalities. Underground comic artists drew inspiration from the film's surreal violence, and punk rock bands in the 80s named themselves after characters and weapons from the movie. Most of these artists discovered the film through bootlegs and bad dubs, watching it on degraded VHS tapes, but that didn't diminish its power. If anything, the rough presentation enhanced it, making it feel dangerous and forbidden. Master of the Flying Guillotine became a secret handshake among artists, a shared obsession that proved you had taste beyond the mainstream. And Jimmy Wang Yu, who'd made it for almost nothing while fighting against his own body's limitations, got to watch his strange little martial arts film transform into a cultural touchstone that influenced generations. Bonus fact: the actual flying guillotine prop used in filming survived and ended up in the strangest place imaginable, a restaurant in Taipei. After production wrapped, Jimmy Wang Yu gave the weapon to a friend who owned a noodle shop, thinking it would make interesting decor. For over 20 years, the flying guillotine hung on the wall above the cash register, collecting dust and grease while customers ate beef noodle soup below it. Most didn't know what it was. Some thought it was a traditional hat. Others assumed it was just random decoration. But martial arts fans who knew the film would spot it immediately, finish their meal in stunned silence, and ask the owner if they could take a photo. The owner would shrug and say, "Sure, knock yourself out." Eventually, a film museum tracked it down and offered to buy it for their collection. The owner refused. He said the flying guillotine was good luck, brought in curious customers, and besides, where else would you see a legendary movie weapon hanging next to a menu board? So, it stayed. And somewhere in Taipei, in a small restaurant most tourists never find, the blade that made movie history still hangs on the wall, watching over bowls of noodles, completely unaware that it's one of the most iconic props in martial arts cinema. Master of the Flying Guillotine didn't just break the rules. It invented new ones, spun them through the air, and took everyone's head off in the process.